Hey guys, it's Christina. Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is just going to be super casual, what I've been eating lately. It's nothing too crazy, but I just thought I would pop in and just show you some meals I cooked recently for some simple food spo. This is just cereal, but it's been too long of me loving this Kashi peanut butter crunch cereal without mentioning it on my channel. I'm absolutely obsessed with it. It's my favorite cereal. I have gone through several boxes in the last few months. My favorite way to eat it is with some almond milk, and sometimes I add fruit, but most of the time I don't. But it's so tasty. Anyway, now to the cooking. One of my favorite go-to meals when I feel like I just need a lot of nutrients and veggies is a quinoa veggie salad bowl-ish thing. And the way I do that is I start by chopping up a bunch of broccoli and tiny little pieces because the broccoli is actually going to stay raw. Everything in the salad is raw except for the quinoa, which is not raw and cooked, obviously. Anyway, but I only really like broccoli raw when it's in tiny little pieces that I find easy to eat. So that's the first step. And then after that, you can kind of really add whatever. But since it is a quinoa bowl, quinoa is usually my next step. And then in the past, I've done sun-dried tomatoes, almonds, kale, stuff like that. But this time I kept it pretty simple, and I just did some red onion, and I did some almonds, and that was pretty much it. But yeah, definitely feel free to customize this however you want. And it looks like it would be kind of boring, but all the textures and stuff just make it so interesting, and you can flavor it however you want. So I usually just do a very simple dressing, but if you want something fancier, maybe pigeon sauce would be good. And because the quinoa and the broccoli are pretty hearty, you could dress it the day you make it, and it just stays good in the fridge all week. And yeah, super nutrient packed, energizing, and honestly, yeah, just the perfect lunch meal. I added a veggie patty to eat with mine for 2 days that week for lunch, and that was it. So if you watched my last video, which was kind of like a random recipe video, you might have seen these. This is some leftover zuppa toscana, my favorite soup that I've ever made. So tasty. I'm happy that I made a bunch and I could eat it again and again. And then this is kind of like a kale quinoa Caesar salad type situation, but the dressing's with tahini, and then it's also I've added craisins to it because I just like craisins in my salad. And then there's really nothing else actually that's Caesar-y about it. I added some nutritional yeast to make it extra cheesy since the tahini dressing was low. But yeah, got myself a soup salad bread situation for dinner tonight. Took all of 5 minutes to prepare and heat up. Can't wait to eat it. So I don't usually buy a jarred pasta sauce these days. Instead, I'll opt to make my own real simply. I'll start off with some onions, garlic, red pepper flakes, and olive oil. Add a can of crushed tomatoes, usually some balsamic vinegar, some nutritional yeast, salt, pepper, maybe some sugar, and then and basil flakes. I couldn't remember what the last one was. Yeah, usually keep it pretty simple and just add that to my can of crushed tomatoes. And then I also decided to add in some lentils for some protein, added that to some kale and angel hair, and enjoyed. Then my next recipe is French onion soup, which understandably starts with so many onions. If you thought I was crying in that last clip with the onions, I was making this with a friend that night, and we were both crying, but I promise you it is worth it. So you start off caramelizing a bunch of onions, which takes a while because you do it low and slow. I also opted to add some sugar to my onions just to help them caramelize a little bit easier since my pot was a little cramped. I also decided to add some mushrooms to the soup. I don't usually do that, but I had some dried shiitake mushrooms on hand that I decided to just rehydrate for this recipe. You'll see me add those in later. But once my onions are caramelized, I deglaze the pot with some red wine. I think traditionally white wine is used more, but I love red wine in French onion soup. At this point, I added the mushrooms and my garlic, and then added a bunch of new beef broth and simmered away. Then did the classic French onion soup where I added a big piece of ciabatta bread on top with some vegan cheese, and then put in my broiler, which that's why the bread got a little too toasty, but it was really, really good. And then I decided to serve the French onion soup with some roasted potatoes that had been roasted with some Dijon mustard, like marinade thing. It was so good. My cat was trying to eat it. Leftovers were more French onion soup without the cheese topping, but instead served with the grilled cheese for dipping. And here's just a picture of some like takeout I got. It was so good. It was gobi Manchurian and these masala noodles. It was from a Himalayan restaurant. So tasty. Forgot to film a video of it, but wanted to at least show the picture. Then here's a breakfast that I really, really enjoyed. Earlier in the week, I had made some kale pesto, which was really simple. It was just literally kale, olive oil, garlic, nutritional yeast, and I didn't have lemon juice, so I just did some like vinegar. But yeah, made kind of like a nice chunky pesto, added that to some toast, and then topped with the tofu scramble. This is a really good kind of like meal prep recipe because you can batch make the pesto, you can batch make the tofu scramble, and then yeah, just assemble the next day. But for breakfast, that feels really special. But yeah, very tasty, nutritional, and easy to make. So this is random, but I figured I'd show it. It is kind of me just putting all my leftovers in one Tupperware and calling it lunch. So it's some quinoa, some split peas, and then some Brussels sprout concoction that my aunt made for Christmas. It's Brussels sprouts, I think, craisins and apples, and kind of like a balsamic dressing type thing. But yeah, I just added this all to a bowl, and I'm calling it lunch for tomorrow because we gotta eat our leftovers, friends. So for my final recipe of this video, I'm going to be doing a pumpkin pasta, which I think this is the first pumpkin pasta I've made all of this fall winter season, so pretty exciting. Starts off with some olive oil, butter, sage, and a lot of garlic. I did half a can of coconut milk because I just happened to have a can of coconut milk on hand that was already opened, but I think you could do whatever plant milk of your choice is. It probably wouldn't be as creamy as if you did like an almond milk, but it would still be tasty. But I also added another half can of pumpkin puree that I had already had open. So yeah, this is very pantry, refrigerator, leftover friendly, as you could see, because it's also another meal where I'm just throwing in stuff that I already had open in my fridge, putting it in a pan and calling it pasta sauce. But you could see the pumpkin puree kind of just combined so beautifully with the coconut milk into this beautiful sauce that I added salt, pepper, parsley too, and then some nutritional yeast as well. Kept it pretty simple. If you wanted it to have more of a mac and cheese vibe, you could do more nutritional yeast and some vegan cheese. But I kind of wanted to keep it just like, yeah, a little bit like more classy, I guess. Like, yeah, like something you'd get at like a fancy restaurant. So I added some fettuccine to it, and it was so tasty. The perfect flavors. If you don't like coconut milk, definitely use almond milk or oat milk or soy milk, because you can taste the coconut a little, but also you could add more seasonings to hide the coconut milk. But yeah, I will definitely be making this again, especially if I ever have a half can of coconut milk or pumpkin puree just lying around like I did this day. But thank you so much for watching this video, guys. It's a little short, it's a little random, but it's the holiday season, so cooking has been a little bit of a struggle lately, but I'm hoping to get back onto it, whatever, in the new year. If you have any recipe suggestions, I'd love to hear them. And I hope you guys had a happy holiday and have a great new year. Bye.